And for more updates, her first-hand account on the Cebu quake and personal observations, we now go live via Zoom to Charms Espina in Cebu City. She joins us tonight for a quick briefer. Yes, good evening, Charms.
Hey, good evening, Will. Good evening, Jay, and everyone at the PTV News Tonight studio.
Yes, we miss you, and first of all, we're happy that you and your family are okay. But although we understand that you weren't on the path of the worst tremors in Bagong City, you also have your own story to tell from where you were when the earthquake hit. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, you guys have already seen the worst stories based on the impact. From the earthquake that happened just recently. But I would say that I was based in Cebu City. We are actually in Guadalupe, the biggest barangay in Cebu City. It's about 10 to 15 minutes away from City Hall. And this would make us actually 2 hours away from Bagong City, which is in the northern coast of Cebu. So you can imagine that Bagong City was being pummeled by not just the possibilities of tsunamis and large waves, but also through the fault line that ran through it, which was just woken up maybe a couple of centuries ago. But that's another story. I digress. My story, being in Cebu City, was actually like a lot of other people that also experienced the quake. It happened a little maybe before 10 o'clock. So a lot of individuals were already home. And indoors, of course, that it excludes us because we work at night normally. But a lot of people were home, probably getting ready for bed, and that included me. And I just heard a large shattering outside by the terrace, because our windows are glass outside by the terrace, and it started shaking really tremendously to the point the glass started cracking and shattering. And then the doors started rattling so loud. My first instinct was we were getting robbed. Someone was trying to get in. But I realized it was a completely different scenario because the roof started creaking and then the doors all started rattling in unison. And then everything just started like shaking. I was literally lurched off my bed, like exorcist style, when you see all these movies of people getting possessed. I was literally lurched out of my bed. I was thrown out of my bed, swung from left to right. And it was not a joke because Bagong City experienced 6.7 to 6.9 magnitude. But here in Cebu, I would say we got about a magnitude 6 to 6.3. So that is still pretty strong. In fact, anything above a magnitude 6 is still considered pretty strong. So it was very scary, in my part. I have not experienced an earthquake in quite a while, and a lot of us haven't. So your first instinct is, do I run out of the house screaming and panicking like a crazy person, or do you go check on your family members? I'm here visiting my 94-year-old abuelita, and of course, my first instinct was to check on her and to make sure that everybody else was safe at home. And of course, our fur babies, who were also acting a little bit strange. Animals have a sixth sense when it comes to sniffing out calamities. So that was pretty much my story, which I think resonates with a lot of people who were also indoors. It was a sudden occurrence. It was shocking. It was scary. You all of a sudden forget all of the earthquake trainings and disaster first aid trainings that you went to, and you just really need to think on your feet and be alert and be vigilant, because we also went through so many aftershocks right now. In fact, we just went through one earlier this evening.
Yes, Charms, because of course, we are taught about that duck, cover, and hold, right? But basically, when you're in the middle of panic, sometimes you don't think about it anyway. Do you think anymore because you're in a state of panic? Do you think how does that
Definitely
impact you? And anyway, 48 hours after, how has it impacted the Cebu community in general, since there has been thousands of aftershocks also?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, even if the epicenter was in Bagong City, 2 hours away, the tremors were still felt very strongly in Metro Cebu and nearby towns. And my personal experience was just like all the others. after we made sure that everybody was safe at home and we assessed that the damage was indeed because of an earthquake and not because of somebody trying to break in and anything else, we rushed out of our homes. You know, this is not exactly the smartest thing to do, but we did. We rushed out of our homes. A lot of people I saw also on the road when the quake stopped. We were all on the streets just to check what was going on. People rushing out of their homes and offices and I would say places of business, because this did disrupt daily life and caused a lot of fear. Even though it happened almost 48 hours ago, there is sort of a trauma for people that have experienced an earthquake of this magnitude. So I can only imagine what the people in Bagong City and other nearby towns like Medellin and San Remigio are going through, especially since they were near the coast and bore the brunt of it. You know, as far as how this affected also the Cebu community, on a positive sense, is that even though some businesses were temporarily closed or shouldn't have closed, they did close, and classes were suspended because we were not just anxious about aftershocks, but many different parts of the community have gotten together to pack relief goods and pack relief supplies just to be able to bring them there as a local effort, you know, not waiting for local government to supply these needs. Because, you know, one of the things that I love about being a Cebuano and a Cebuana is we make sure that we rely on ourselves. We don't wait for government relief efforts. And there have been some difficulties getting that supply and that help to the remotest areas because there have been roads that have been deemed impassable, communication lines have gone down. But I have really seen, especially the relief efforts in City Hall, you see students, people of all ages just coming together to make sure to show and support and to be part of relief packing goods or going to the place of ground zero to be able to give what they can as far as relief goods and funds are concerned.
Okay, and what are the main needs and concerns of the people right now? And have there been any difficulties encountered in these response efforts?
Well, of course, the immediate needs after a massive earthquake is almost similar to a storm, right? Because this is pretty much, right up there as far as a large calamity is concerned, so immediate needs are, calls for safe shelter and assurances down the line after all of this has sort of settled down that homes and buildings are actually structurally sound. At this point, people need access to clean water and electricity and reliable updates. That's one of the scariest things out there because communication lines are completely or almost shut down in Bagong and further up north. So people are clueless. I have seen some updates in the town of Medellin where individuals are sleeping in like garbage bags, like packed on top of their heads to avoid the downpour. That's the crazy thing about Cebu. We did not have a storm coming just yet, no confirmed storms, but it rains at night, like we're in the middle of a signal number 1 or something. But there is no storm. This is just a common occurrence here. And I even wondered, after the quake, it also rained really, really hard. And I said, wow, talk about compounding what people are going through, So the challenge right now, I think, is that response teams are stretched thin, especially in northern Cebu, where roads and communication lines can slow down aid. And of course, there's also the challenge of coordination between local government and national agencies. So volunteerism right now is key.
Okay, Charms, before I ask your final message to the people, I'd like to link this with, of course, for many years now, we have been, at the back of our mind is the big one here in Luzon. So as part of your thoughts, what do you think the people in Manila really need or in Luzon rather, need to prepare for, just to prepare for the big one, which they're expecting a magnitude 8, based on your experiences there in Cebu right now?
Okay, having experienced something where you feel utterly helpless and it just sort of makes you realize how powerless you are in in the midst of the wrath of nature, right? You have no control. You were in the middle of Mother Nature gone crazy. So all of this, the possibilities of the big one in Manila, the earthquake that happened here in Cebu province, it's a wake-up call for all of us. We cannot be complacent. We can't stop earthquakes, but we can reduce the risks. So as far as government agencies and local businesses and schools are concerned, we have to make sure that these structures are safe. As for our homes, we can take personal responsibility to make sure our homes are structurally safe. We also have to make sure that we equip ourselves with the right drills and information by joining community drills, training yourself for first aid. This is so important. And William, I know you know what I mean, since you're pretty adept with first aid and health. That's your background. And very importantly, last night, actually, I realized we do not have a family emergency kit. We don't have a go bag. A go bag is obviously anything that you can just pick up and just go and be like, hey, we can survive off this for maybe a week tops, or, until we come up with our next plan. So we didn't have that, supplies that you probably use for camping, food that would keep you alive and your family members, important documents in Ziploc cases to make sure you still have identification, if the world comes to an end, things like that. It's very important to make sure we're not complacent and relying on external help. And right now, most importantly, my final call to action is we need to support our neighbors in Bagong and northern Cebu as they recover, and the others that are still in evacuation camps, because disaster preparedness and being part of this large community of Filipinos and caring for them is really a shared responsibility. And my last thought about all of that is, of course, taking care of people is paramount when it comes to disasters. But we also do not take into account the history and the heritage that we lose each time there's a calamity. So the old buildings and century-old churches, and all of these things just crumble to ash when each one of these disasters hit. So there needs to be a part of the budget from a disaster resilience budget or something, or the historical commission needs to come up with a joint project with them to make sure to preserve these old churches that we have that have been standing for 700 years or longer, to make sure that the next generation can still experience this part of our history and part of our heritage. Because each time there's a huge calamity like this, I know it's unavoidable, but we can take steps to make sure that people are not just safe, but also we take part in preserving our history and heritage.
Okay, thank you very much, Charms Espina, live from Cebu. Have a safe journey, and we'll see you tomorrow.